Good afternoon, folks. It's the afternoon of May 8th as I'm doing this recording here. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that attended the workshops over the weekend in Dallas-Fort Worth. They were absolutely wonderful. And again, once a reminder, upcoming on May 19th, we will be having a workshop in Atlanta, and Mr. M and Ms. M will be there. 2 weeks after that, June 2nd, we will be in Minneapolis, and they will be joining me there as well. Now, that workshop is not yet posted on the on my website. I will have that posted in the next couple of days, but the date is set. It's going to be June 2nd in Minneapolis. Now, with that, let's go back and just do a quick, I don't want to say a review, but just a reminder of what we had talked about last week. Why are we here? Why is all these funds coming forward? What is the purpose that we have the opportunity to participate in this currency exchange and be able to basically receive a very large sum of money in a very short period of time for a very little effort? We've never seen anything like this happen in our history of our human race before. Our whole history as humanity has been thousands of years of the elite, predominantly the kings, the monarchs, and the dictators, holding the masses of humanity in various forms of slavery, and the various forms of financial slavery are the ones that have always been very strong. We've really seen these forms of financial slavery appearing more so in the last 100 to 200 years, where gold has become a very important part of money structure. See, you go back more than 200 to 300 years, gold wasn't really a part of the financial system as far as a money supply. It was always treasured for other purposes. Well, that's another topic. But this shift and change that's coming our way, it's because that we as the human race are ready for this shift and change. I talk about this in the workshops. I've touched on it in some of the past radio programs. We've just moved into a whole new era of how our Earth is reacting to its environment around us. We've moved into this situation where all of the energy that comes into our Earth and to our planet in these various forms of photon light, it's all picking up and it's increasing. Now, I'm very sensitive to that because living here in Sedona, it's a very, very unique place. People who come here and they visit, they understand that there really is a difference. And for what's happening here in Sedona, on a side note, it's the natural geography that creates it. We live in this area of these massive, beautiful, gigantic red rocks. And these red rocks, they're filled with iron and copper. Well, they're both what are called energy magnets. They attract energy is what they do, and they're energy conductors. And underground here in Sedona are massive concentrations of quartz crystals, another form of an energy conductor. And it's only about a 12-mile radius. That's all that it is. But when you take those two combined, they act as energy magnets, and they draw in the electromagnetic energy of the Earth into a higher concentration. So that means everything in this area, the energy vibrates at a slightly higher, faster vibration than almost anywhere else in North America. We're told there's one other spot in South America that is very similar, but those are the only two places basically here in the Western Hemisphere that does that. Well, because of that, then we're sensitive to that here. We're sensitive to energy shifts and changes. We understand what it does. Well, since in about the last, 6 to 7 years now, when we went through this massive shift, that's now happening to the whole Earth. And what it's doing is that we're waking up. It helps to raise our consciousness, what it does. But not only does it help us to raise our consciousness, it helps us to become more aware. It puts us in a position of being more sensitive to our environment and our surrounding and how we get to care for one another, creating a loving atmosphere and environment. That's what's happening to us. The energy is shifting and changing. Now, not everybody shifts and changes with it. And those that don't, well, they find themselves out of balance with this harmonic, energetic shift of the Earth and its environment. And those that don't shift with it, well, they're out of balance. They're out of balance energetically with what's going on around them. And what happens that when you're out of balance like that, it creates more of what is called disjunct, disruptive, chaotic atmosphere and conditions. Now, as you know, I used to be a state senator. I spent a good number of years of my life in politics. I was involved in politics in one way or another for close to 20 years. I have never, in all the years I've been around, seen politics so chaotic as it is now. the chaos that it's creating, the drama that it's creating. But what we're also seeing is this gigantic shift in change between those who are understanding it of what's going on and those who are not. I'm not here to get on board and be a champion of, President Donald Trump. That's not my intention here. People have their own opinions about Trump. Yes, he's kind of egotistical. Yes, he's unconventional. Yes, he can be chaotic at times. But he knows what's going on behind the scenes. He knows what's going on in what is called the deep state world. And he's there to clean that up. And all the reports that I am receiving from behind the scenes, from those on the inside, is it is happening. It's happening very quietly, but it is taking place. Those that are in touch with that, they understand that. And I think they get and know what's going on. They understand that we've lived in a world that has been very chaotic politically. There's been very deep corruption that is going on. And that's shifting and changing. And as we shift and change with it, we help to aid in that shift and change because of what is called the collective thought that we give to it and the power of humanity's collective thought. And those that aren't, well, they're more disruptive, they're more disjunct, they're more chaotic, there's more crisis situations going on in their lives. And that's going to continue to happen as we see this spread, shift, and change. Now, I did talk about also last week is that you have these powerful elite people, what we call and we usually refer to as the cabal. They basically run and control the world's money supply. For decades, these cabal have basically used their manipulation because they have controlled two predominant issues, sources, or areas that can totally control our lives and our environment. One is controlling the information sources. And by information sources, I mean they control the media, they control the entertainment industry, they control the education industry, etc. They basically control all the information sources that we use to develop our values, what we believe, what we experience, what we see, what we know is going on. They controlled them. The power of the internet has basically taken that control away from them. We now have the ability to bypass that. The second area of control has always been they're controlling the monetary supply, the world's monetary supply. The Federal Reserve Bank system, the central banking system here in the United States, has been that predominant source. And the Federal Reserve basically controls the world's money supply directly and indirectly is what it does. And they're starting to lose control of that as well. So the two areas where they've been able to have this power and control over humanity, they're losing that. And a lot of these cabal influencing people, they're being removed, or they're either losing their power and their control, or they're being removed from the places of power and control. But if you go back and if you read those Dr. Neruda interviews, now those are on my website. You can go to the website under the resources tab. He talks about these group of people that are called the Incunabila. The Incunabila are the elite of the elite. They are the most powerful ones. They're the ones that stay totally in the background and hardly anybody knows who they are, but they control the cabal. And these Incunabila, they're not stupid. They're very bright people. They're very smart people, and they're very wealthy people. But they're also addicted to power and control. And they see and they know what's going on. They're allowing the old platforms of power and control, information and money, to be released. But they're not going away. Their new forms of power and control will be what I've told you are going to be the new forms of artificial intelligence. It's what's called the transhumanist agenda. Now, part of our responsibility of receiving these funds is to create a counter to the transhumanist agenda so that we don't have to surrender to it, we don't have to submit ourselves to it. And I'll talk a whole lot more about that on the radio program. I'll go into far more detail about what this transhumanist agenda, what it means, and how it has the ability to control humanity, and how these top elite controllers, these Incunabila, how they can continue to basically stay in forms of power and control. It's a limited form of power and control, but it only has power and control if we surrender to it. And what I'm here to talk about is the alternative. How we develop an alternative lifestyle, how we develop an alternative means that allows us to be totally free from that. I've talked about what is called separation consciousness. That is the very root problem of all of humanity's issues. And the coming forms of separation consciousness will come out very strong in this transhumanist agenda. But we have the ability to develop what is called an alternate heart consciousness. It's also what is called the sovereign integral process, as it's discussed in the wingmakers.com websites and their materials that they have. And I'll talk about that. One of the primary sources, it's not just about money. It's about taking a part of humanity, people that wish to participate in this, allowing them to be financially free so they can do that heart consciousness work to help us prepare for what is called the coming decades, to have an alternative that is there to this transhumanist agenda process. That's a lot of what I'm going to talk about on the program tomorrow night. Now, right off the bat, that may not be all that interested. It may not be something that just doesn't attract your attention, or it could create something that may create a little bit of fear within you. The first thing that I want to say, if that sounds fearful to you, then deal with it. Because your greatest enemy is not people. It's not politics. It's not military. It's not government. The greatest fear, the greatest enemy that you have is not something that is outside of you. It is something that can come from within you, and it's fear. Fear will stop you. It will paralyze you. It will demoralize you. It will freeze your free thinking process. It will freeze your ability to process what is going on, to determine what is taking place in your life. Learning how to process and undo and release fear so that fear is not a part of your life is one of the most important things that you can do for you. It's one thing to receive a lot of money, but if you still got root fear issues within your life, the money isn't necessarily going to make that go away. The money will only intensify, it will only magnify the fear issues within your life, and more money can then become more problems to your life. It's important to understand that. Secondly, it's important to understand, and I really mean this, why this is an important session to listen to. If you and I and individuals, if we do not learn how to develop this sovereign integral process in our lives, to develop this heart consciousness process, then we will by default become a part of the transhumanist agenda, whether you like it or not. It will be there. It is coming. It's going to be very powerful, but it's going to be very subtle. If you don't know how to spot it, if you don't know how to recognize it, if you don't know how to overcome it, then it will be a part of your life. That's something that's already been given, and I'm not the only one that talks about that. If you want to know more about this coming artificial intelligence world, this transhumanist agenda world, I would encourage you to go to my website, go to the resources tab, and then read the 454-page book by Wes Penry about the artificial intelligence world. I am seeing more and more and more postings coming out in Facebook and in the YouTube videos about this artificial intelligence world that's coming our way. A lot of it is already here, but what's here now is just the tip of the iceberg. It will phase in to what will become a part of our culture and a part of our lives. And it's going to be presented in a very positive manner so that it looks very enticing. It can be very seductive because it says it can improve all the physical qualities of your life, improve your living condition, and etc. And so it becomes very enticing. It becomes very seductive because those are things we would love to have happen in our lives. But by so doing, you're choosing to use an artificial means of outside of you to come into your life and give you a sense of fulfillment and purpose and a better life. But it also has the ability to subtly control you. And what happens is, it's what I call the stripping away of the soul. We lose the power of the soul integration into our lives. We lose the ability to have our own self-process and determine ourselves who we want to be and how we want to live our lives in a better life. In essence, we basically allow our souls to be turned over to this artificial intelligence, transhumanist agenda world. And it will happen by default. It takes a conscious choice to be able to move on beyond it. And what I'm here to do now is to start doing a series of messages to help us in this process of how we can learn to live beyond it, Nobody else can do that work for you. Only you can do it. Myself and others can share with you how to do it. We can take you through the steps. We can take you through the process. I can tell you the experience I'm having in my own life. This has been a part of me that's gone on now for a good 6 to 8 years in me. I experienced the difference in my life. I can tell when stuff like that is going on, and I know how to spot it and immediately deal with it and allow it to make sure that it is not something that is basically controlling me. I do that. I do that with fear. I do that with anxiety. I do that with anger. I do that with any types of apprehension that I have in my life. I know how to immediately spot it and immediately release it. And when we do that, we are the ones that get to live that life of peace. We get to live that life of love. We get to live that life of caring and giving. That down inside, that's what we all want. So I encourage you to listen to the program tomorrow night. Also to remember that it's always available on archive as well. So with that, hope you join me tomorrow night. Let's see, that would be the evening of May 9th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. You can always go to my website. That's where the links are to get into the program, as well as the newsletter information links that I send out as well. Okay? So we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you very much. Love all of you. Okay. Bye-bye.